Good afternoon, everybody. My name is José Villarrubia, and I'm going to be hosting this panel with Frank Whiteley, who is our guest this year. It's his first time in Baltimore, and I would like us to begin by welcoming him and giving him a hand. Baltimore loves you already.
It's a friendly place.
So we're just going to have a chat, pretty much, and then we're going to open it to questions that you may have, and then you can come up, and if you want to have any follow-up, you can do that then. So hold your questions, and we'll give you plenty of time. Can everybody hear as well, even from the back? Is that okay? Very good. So I wanted to begin by talking about something that is not comics related. Okay. So this
not too personal, I hope.
Not too personal. Certainly not embarrassing. Vince, Frank's real name is Vince, and Vince got to Baltimore a couple of days ago, and he got to see a little bit of Baltimore.
I did, yeah.
And a little bit beyond Dana Harbor. So we had a lot of fun going to the American Visionary Museum. Have any of you been there? Raise your hand if you've been. Okay, if you're from Baltimore and you haven't been, you should check it out. It's an amazing place.
Yeah, take it as a recommendation from a tourist.
Yes,
from an outsider. Yeah, it's really something. You know, some of the art's amazing, but the sentiment of some of the pieces, some of the personal stories, and just the overall kind of the sentiment of the whole idea of the museum itself and what it represents is really, really special. You know, I felt quite uplifted after it.
That's great. It's a kind of unique museum because it shows what they call outsiders art or visionary art, which is work that was produced by, or is being produced by people in unusual circumstances, and people who were in mental institutions or in prison, or a lot of self-taught, folk art, things like that. It's very intense, pretty much, but there is a lot of joy.
Oh, absolutely, well. Yeah. And also, it's got a gift shop. I could actually have spent an hour in that gift shop. It's hilarious. Yeah, you should really go.
So, what do you think? I'm going to ask you something like a little intellectual, but what do you think is the influence, or what do you think? Do you think there is a? Do you think that looking at art like that is out there, in all different kinds of styles, all different levels of traditional skill, and a lot of imagination, that's for sure, and seeing other art in different mediums that are not comics, do you feel that for yourself that's something that feeds your creativity in comics, or does it happen indirectly just by being excited about art, or sometimes aesthetically, or?
Aesthetic influences, you know, can come from anywhere and everywhere. In terms of influencing my comic work, pretty much every type of art, from the highest to the lowest, informs my comic book work to some extent. It's difficult to quantify it, but much of what you do in comics is draw like environments that are very often like based in the real world. So, you know, what goes on around you in your environment is, you know, even things that aren't art, you know, like as such, just like nature and people and all the stuff that's around us in the environment, all of it informs what I do to some extent. But a museum like that, certainly there's a kind of openness to the creativity, because much of which I find inspiring, and much of what we get, like when you go to a regular art gallery or museum, and you're looking at work that's considered to be great art, because there's a kind of consensus, a learned consensus. You know, we're kind of educated to be able to discern what's art and what's not, and this kind of goes against all that, which is really refreshing.
And I think that that is very true, and I think a lot of the preconceptions that we have about what makes great art or interesting art or valid art is really challenged by a museum of this kind. In that sense, it's a really good fit with Baltimore, because Baltimore is a city that sort of lives by its own rules and that doesn't really try to impress anybody, which is something I really love about this town. So I think that's very interesting. Do you find yourself to be the kind of person that gets caught up in things in real life, visually, like staring at things, like staring at a corner of a wall that's peeling or a cat or something?
Yeah,
more than other people.
When I was at school, every report card at the end of term, like one of the comments that I always got, besides could try harder, was easily distracted.
Yes.
I could just drift away staring at nothing in particular, and I'm still like that. I suppose it's just that way if you enjoy visual things, you can, it's the same as with music. You can really get lost in it. You can get lost in conversation or friendship or a meal or whatever. But yeah, for me, visual things it's a very strong distraction.
But I think that one of the things that is unique about you, and everybody in this room already knows, is that when you broke into the American comics industry, your work was very distinct and very different from what anybody else was doing. And I think that it's just a series of influences that you brought into it, combined with your own personal voice, which always has been very clear, very loud and clear. I think that set it apart and sort of polarized people in the beginning.
Still polarizes people?
Still does.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I only hear from the ones who like your stuff. I never hear from the ones that don't.
Check out the internet.
But I think especially when you work in X-Men, it was like dramatic.
Yeah.
Just love and hate. But that was X-Men fans. That wasn't just comics readers or even just American readers. Special kind.
No, I don't think that's fair. I mean, there was a lot of people who'd been buying the book for years because of the characters and because of the type of book it was, irrespective of who was writing and drawing it. And then these two jokers from Vertigo came along who obviously didn't know what to do with superheroes and did something really different that they didn't like. I think quite a lot of them came round when they stuck with it and kind of read the stories and realised where Grant was kind of going with it. But certainly the initial reaction to the first few issues was mixed.
You're very kind to those readers. A lot of them really liked it right away, though. I think that there were people that were just like, wow, this is like the freshest, most interesting kind of take on these characters that we've ever seen. And so there was love and hate, but certainly nobody was neutral. Everybody had an opinion. And, that happens a lot in superhero comics, I feel, in every aspect of them. But that was a dramatic example of it in terms of recent years. Well, not so recent anymore.
I think just a lot of people don't really like change. I mean, recently Flex Mentalo was re-released and it's been recoloured. And it was recoloured because Grant and myself both asked that it would be recoloured because we had no input when it was coloured the first time round. And loads of, nearly everybody I've spoken to really likes the recolouring, but when you go online, because obviously most people don't think, oh, that's a really nice book, I'll go and say something nice about it. They just like it and read it and put it on their shelf, or lend it to a friend. But when people don't like something, they go online and they slate it. And there's a lot of people who are like really unhappy about the recolouring. And I'm sure mostly it was just because it's like when George Lucas goes back and does stuff to the Star Wars films, and they just leave them alone, So I totally get why people don't like things getting poked around with after the fact, but I really like the new comic. So
I think it looks terrific. I don't think everything looks terrific when it comes to colors. But it looks really very picky. No, seriously, it looks really, really, really nice. If you guys haven't seen it, this was a series that came out and was impossible to get like forever because there were some legal brouhaha having to do with Charles Atlas and stuff. So Vertigo finally collected it and put it on a nice hardcover, and it's a super strong, some of Grant Morrison's best writing, and I think that, like I was telling you yesterday, I feel like, to me, the way that you draw really makes sense with this kind of coloring. There's some artwork from the same time when you were doing this that I can see how more basic coloring or more traditional comic book coloring would make more sense. But I feel like this is very sensitively done, and I think worked really, really well. I think that one of the things that's interesting to me about your work is that the first work that I found, I know you did work before this, the underground work that you've done, and I first started seeing your work when you work in those anthologies like the Urban Legends and all those big books. Have you guys seen those books from Paradox Press?
Yes.
They had actually, I was looking at them today because I thought I would maybe bring in one, and they had like amazing artists doing those strips. It was like you were in very good company.
Oh yeah.
And that was kind of like a breakthrough in American comics. And everybody was doing 1 or 2 pagers for that, and about 10 or 15 of those came out. And you're in most of them, right?
Yeah, I think I was in about 10 of the big books.
Yeah. That was in black and white, and it was kind of a European format. It was oversized and with many panels in each page, and each page told a single
and
story.
they were often kind of documentary style stories or potted histories, so they didn't have regular comic book storytelling as such. It was much more like a documentary thing where you have like the text and words were working together, but it wasn't, very often it wasn't in a flowing narrative.
Right.
You know, there was a lot of, you know, like photo ref
and not so much moment to moment kind of continuity, but like different scenes in the story kind of thing, and kind of with a punch line ending many times. Your work stood out like crazy there, and I remember noticing that you were drawing very different from everybody else in there. And that was in black and white, and it was just very sensitive line art. But this, the chapters that you did of this series, Missionary Man, which I guess you did for 2000 AD originally?
Yeah, it was a sister comic to 2000 AD. It was called the Judge Dredd magazine.
And this is one of your earliest things that you've ever done, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was my first professional work. I'd been working in the underground comic scene in Glasgow for about 3 years, and then this was my first paid work, and it was a Western strip.
And the thing about it is that it's painted in full color. It looks like you did it in gouache, or
a gouache and watercolor.
Gouache and watercolor. And I was looking at it this morning again because I haven't seen it in a while. And actually, I thought the color was just lovely in this. And I thought nobody has colored you the way you color yourself. That's for sure. You work with some very talented colors, but there's something about your colors that is unique. And you guys, if you really follow Vince's work, you can see it in his covers, which have very specific colors that he picks, and that always has an element of surprise to me, which I think there's elements of surprise in your drawing, and likewise there's elements of surprise in your color. And even in this early work, you can already see it. You can see the Moebius influence. But there's like it's a little bit more contrasty. It's a little bit more graphic. It's you wouldn't mistake it for Moebius.
Oh God. If only you would.
It's really, really wonderful, and I recommend that you guys check this out, like in 8 books, or I got it for very little, and I think that you can still get it. It's a good time to buy
cheapest chips.
Used books online. So I want to talk to you a little bit about, because I'm sure everybody would have maybe questions about this, but about your work with Grant, and basically the 2 major things you've done with him was the issues of New X-Men that you did, and then All-Star Superman. And now you're doing a one-shot pretty much with him?
Yeah, just 38 pages.
And then, of course, Flex Mentallo and We 3. And so, in a way, Grant has been your most regular collaborator, even though you work with other people, and you're going to be working with other people, and you have kind of like a special relationship with him. You were telling me yesterday that your Earth 2, which you did with him, is going to be reprinted and repackaged.
Yeah, I think in November, just as a square bound soft cover, and then next year it's coming out as some sort of prestige, like a deluxe hardcover or something with a lot of sketchbook stuff in it.
That's really, really nice. So of all the things that you worked with Grant with, not which one do you think is the best, but which one holds the most sentimental place for you?
Flex Mentalo, I've got a soft spot for that because it was the first time we'd worked together, and as soon as I started working on that first script, like I knew I wanted to work with Grant as much as possible. I loved the themes in the book. I loved the way he tells a story. And as I was drawing this stuff, I could see that it was working. You know, I could see that the two of us were gelling. I've got a kind of soft spot for We Three as well because it was very collaborative. Usually Grant just gives me a script and lets me get on with it, but when we were doing We Three, we kind of sat down together, both of us drawing, trying to work out sequences. We never get anything worked out when the two of us were together, but so it was always left with this impossible task, you know, and then I had to send him whatever I came up with, and then he would make suggestions, and it kind of went back and forth a lot. But yeah, the funny thing about We Three was that I really didn't want to do it at all. He said he had a bunch of create your own things, and I could pick any one of them, and I said, great, what are they all about? And he started describing them, and he said, but the one I really want you to do is about a cat, a dog and a rabbit. And I just laughed and said, no, really, what's it about? And he was like, oh, it's about... And then he started describing it, a cat, a dog and a rabbit, and they're wearing suits of armour, and they try to get home. And I was just thinking, that sounds rubbish. And I actually thought, this is Grant's first really bad idea. But you know, the more he talked about it, I was thinking, okay, yeah, okay, it sounds like it might be an okay story, it sounded a bit simple, and I still couldn't imagine the animals wearing suits of armour being anything other than idiotic. And but in fairness, as soon as I started trying to design them, just being the kind of person I ended up getting really into it and imagine, well, you know, the centre bit of the body would be really narrow to accommodate you know, and then yeah, after I'd been working on it a really short time, I thought this is going to be great. So I was quickly won over.
Well, you know, it's funny that you say that because I remember being very, very impressed when this was coming out, and I never thought about it this way because I saw it as even though there's two creators involved, I saw it as a single piece of creativity. The fact is, if you take away your designs, if you take away the acting of your characters, if you take all that, and I was just, what you were saying, I was picturing illustrated by other comic book artists, and it would have been horrible. At least by the ones I was thinking.
Somebody better.
I'm not going to say anybody, but you know, just famous people that would have destroyed it, in my opinion. And so there's a lot to be said by the sensitivity that you use, and then the kind of boldness in terms of the designs, because the designs in this don't look like so-called comic book designs, and that's something that is very apparent in your work. You have a very sophisticated sensibility when it comes to putting together worlds, and I think that yeah, I can totally see how the script it would be like, oh, this could be just the most horrible thing ever. Not that it was, because I think it's a wonderful book, but he needed you or somebody very special to do it with, because it's very different. And I think that in both of these books, the one thing that you both got to do, and maybe more consciously the second time around, is you're doing some really incredible, innovative storytelling, things that, for example, didn't happen so much in X-Men or All-Star Superman and stuff, which were much more traditionally told tales. And I think that's what sets, and it's a well-known cliche, but that's what sets apart a cartoonist, from an illustrator, in terms of not just doing a pretty picture, but actually being able to tell the story clearly and in an interesting and engaging way to the reader. So I think that in a way you got to flex your muscles a lot more. I'm looking at the picture. Creatively in this book and in this other book than some of your other, maybe better known books as well. So I think that's really cool. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the book that you're doing with Grant right now. You're in the midst of doing it. Can you tell us, without giving too many spoilers, what it is about?
It's the Charlton characters. That's the characters that The Watchmen was originally based on. So it's the Question and Blue Beetle and that crowd. It's a 38-page one-shot. And Grant said a fair bit about it online, much of which I can't remember. But it's incredibly, the storytelling is incredibly kind of dense and difficult. Hopefully it won't be difficult to read, but it's certainly difficult to make it work from my point of view. And it's taking a long time. It's 38 pages, and I've been working on it for like nearly a year. I've been doing other things. I've been doing a lot of covers and a fair bit of travelling, but this is really taking much longer than anything else I've worked on. It's mostly an 8-panel grid that sometimes breaks down into a 16-panel grid. As I say, I'm hoping, trying hard to make it easy to follow, but it's certainly not easy to actually work this stuff out. It's very enjoyable. It's a good challenge, but it's a lot of hard work at this point in time. But and I've only seen the first 30 pages of script. I'm on page 21 or 22 just now. But so I'm hoping, despite the fact it's taken me this long to get this far, I'm hoping to be finished it in November. And it's part of a larger work that he's been talking about called Multiversity, and that's a bunch of different books, and each one's got a different artist. And I don't know the other artists, I don't know who else is involved yet, but I think they're waiting for me to do my bit before they start bringing other people in, just because they've seen how slowly it's moving on. But yeah, I've only seen the first 30 pages. It works really well, you know, the script works really well, the story works really well, as far as I can tell so far. And you know, on the occasions when I've actually been back and read the script while looking at the artwork, I think it's going to go together like clockwork at the end. So
it's an unusual size to do 48 pages, especially for the 38. It's super unusual. So it's just going to be staple bound.
I presume so. Yeah.
It's unusual that he's doing it like that, because you cannot make a collection out of something like that.
Well, I suppose they'll collect all the different stories together, yeah.
So, because most of you that read comics know that the Calvin characters were the ones that Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons used for Watchmen, and this may not, that whole thing would be for Watchmen and all that stuff. And does the book that you're doing bear any relationship with Watchmen? Is it like, in any way, is it a reaction to it, or is it influenced by it, or is it trying to be completely different from it?
It's certainly different from it. Grant said something online about what you would do with the Watchmen characters if you were telling a specific type of story and you hadn't, you know, Watchmen hadn't been done. Mm-hmm. As I say, I've only seen 30 of the 38 pages, so I couldn't spoil it that much even if I tried. Mm-hmm. But no, I mean, I don't see it. I don't see it as I don't see it as being very closely aligned to Watchmen. But there is certainly something in the complexity of the writing and the way the ideas are being woven together, and the type of storytelling approach that I can see certain parallels with Watchmen. Yeah.
And that's a very interesting point, because I mean, Watchmen, besides the particular storyline and the particular circumstances of its creation and all that stuff, one of the reasons why a lot of people do a doctoral thesis in English and stuff like that use Watchmen is because it's very layered when it comes to superhero fantasy comics, and not many people have tried to do anything as complex. I can think of very few examples. And I think that when Grant has done very complex writing, like Invisibles and stuff, he wasn't really superheroes. So I think that it's interesting to see him doing something in a way where you say maybe as ambitious literary, in a literary sense as Watchmen, but with his own ideas and I think your own aesthetics, which are of course very, very different. Nice. And then after you're done with the chapter of multiversity, you're going to be embarking on what turned out to be a longer project that you had anticipated with Mark Miller.
Yeah, Mark's involved with running a comic book convention in London called Kapow, and he phoned me up and asked me to meet him in a pub for a drink because he knew I didn't go to cons very often, and he wanted to talk me into going to this one because he was involved with it. And when we got talking, we started talking about creating our own work and about working together again. And I said, well, I would want something really short. I want something really short. I want a single character, and I don't want it to be superheroes. And he's come up with something that's, I think it's going to be 10 issues, and he said it's like Star Wars for superheroes, or it's like Lord of the Rings for superheroes. And, so it's pretty much everything that I didn't want. But having said that, the last time I worked with Mark, which was in The Authority, which was a team book, we had the best time working together. His scripts are a lot of fun, really easy to work from, which will be a nice change of pace after Pax Americana. And so I don't really know what to expect. He keeps talking as though it's like I'm halfway through it, and I've got 10 pages of script which he gave me just to do the 3 pages of. He wanted a sneak peek for one of his other comics. But even from the first 10 pages, I can kind of, I've got a feel for it, so I'm really looking forward to it.
So we are. So are we. So that should be very fun. So I think I'm going to open it up to questions, because I know that.
Now, the new work that you're working on with Grant Morrison, that you said that was with the question and everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So is how excited that as you can. Well, that's why I wanted to ask that was a question, but it must be really exciting with such a dynamic character like the question, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Visually, the question's going to look pretty much like the question always looked, but in terms of the way the character's been written, he's a slightly different take. I don't know if Grant's got into this online or not, but where the Ditko question was that Ayn Randian kind of black and white, right and wrong sort of morality. This question is much more from a kind of integral school of thought, where everything's a spectrum. So the character's going to play out differently and kind of act slightly differently. I mean, he'll basically serve the same function in the story, but it's just, as Grant usually does, he's got a slightly different spin and everything.
If I'm to understand, you worked at Kodansha for a period of time?
No,
Kodansha? That's Bob Pope.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I guess can't believe Wikipedia.
Let's just say it.
I was going to ask questions about.
They were terrible.
I was going to ask questions about technique. I was going to ask questions about your technique, about like what lessons you've learned throughout your career that have sort of shaped your style today. As far as drawing.
As far as drawing, I guess there's been a bunch of influences, like other artists that I've liked. There's my natural kind of like the way I draw anyway, and there's a kind of constant dissatisfaction with the way the work looks, which is why over the years I keep kind of trying to do things slightly differently. So when I started out, everything was just about clarity. I just wanted things to be easy to follow, and over the course of the years I started learning more about storytelling, and it became more of a priority for me than the activity of the drawing itself. I mean, the drawing needs to be good enough to support what's going on in the visual narrative, but that's actually the thing that interests me more, which obviously hasn't helped with the dissatisfaction with the way the drawings turn out, so I need to find some balance for that.
It's interesting to see your original pages, because I feel that the way that you work now is just in pencils, and you leave a lot of open space for the colorist, which I think must be scary, because they can really mess it up or they can make it work. But the pages are very delicate in real life, and they sort of feel to me almost like a negative of like what the finished thing would be. They really feel like work in progress in that sense, because you're meaning those lines to be black as opposed to the graphite silver gray, and it's very, very. I think that if you get a chance, you can see them from a dealer. Do you have a dealer that has your pages here?
Oh no, not here. No.
Not here. Does Albert Moy deal your work, or who does?
No, it's Mitch Etkowitz. Graphic Collectibles, but
yeah, you can see them online, but especially if you can see them in person. He goes to San Diego and stuff, and it's very, very interesting, I think. Especially knowing that you come from like a painted background, and you did just beautifully painted Sandman pages, and you can paint when you want to. Beautiful. All the way in the back.
Yeah, I noticed what seems to me to be a lot of Wally Wood in some of your work, and you mentioned other influences. Do you have any favorite artists from when you were just starting out, when you were reading comics that tell us about?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I love Wally Wood now. I didn't know a lot of Wally Wood, a lot of his work when I was younger, but he was obviously an influence on Jack Davis and Mort Drucker, and both of them were a big influence on me when I was a teenager. And they're still, I mean, I can still see Mort Drucker and Jack Davis in my own work, you know, very often. There was a Scottish artist called Dudley Watkins, who was kind of similar in style to Winsor McKay, or Winsor McKay, you know, the Little Nemo guy. Obviously there's Mobius, and Katsuhiro Otomo, and Jeff Darrow, and like there's a bunch of guys. I've also been influenced by a lot of guys like Dave Gibbons and Frank Miller. You know, that there's not an immediate kind of an obvious connection there, or an obvious like visual. Like you can see, like most people can see Mobius very easily in my work, or Jeff Darrow, but not so much with like Mike Mignola, for instance. You know. Funnily enough, I actually met Al Adams in Boston. I think it was last year. And when I was talking to him, I said, "You know, that you were a big influence." And he said, "I can't see it," which is the last thing you want to hear when you feel something like that. But I think he was just kind of sounding me out to see if it was just an empty compliment. And I explained that, you know, like I had seen the black and white reprints of when he was doing Batman with Denny O'Neil and who was inking him?
Peter Russell,
and I just loved that stuff. But you know, I also, you know, I explained those areas of his work that I liked best and that had meant the most to me, and then gave him another list of guys that I also feel have influenced me, like Mike Mignola and Frank Miller and Dave Gibbons and a whole bunch of others. And he was like, okay, you know, like I said, you know, I'm not trying to rip your style, it's just that, you know, there's something that you can do that I can't, and you know, it's inspiring. And you know, I saw that stuff when I was kind of in my late teens, early 20s, when I was just starting out in comics, and he went, okay, and he was perfectly happy then, but I think he was just kind of sounding me out to make sure it wasn't some kind of It's just one of these things you say to people at conventions when you meet them, you know. Anyway.
Keeping with the aesthetics, your X-Men work was daunting when I was at the Kubert School. And when you're there, you're sort of surrounded by rank and file, including myself, wannabes. That's just how it is. But what you brought to X-Men was something that I hadn't seen, that none of us had seen. It's like you said, there was a tremendous change. And for the first time, the superheroes were not supermodels. And for a generation told that they're outcast, they looked like it. And I really appreciated that. But it's as you said, there were the dissenting voices. And they said, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. Yes, you can, someone is. And it was okay. And I loved it, and a lot of us did. So it's like you said, we loved it, we put it on the shelf. We should have gone on the internet. I apologize.
You still can't do it.
But now, having laid that groundwork, do you see a more open landscape in the comics industry for the truly unique visual style? Or do you feel that there are some books that are always going to be rank and file supermodels?
I think some books probably lend themselves better to being rank and file supermodels, you know, or, you know, like lovely, slick eye candy, you know, I mean, that really works, you know. It really works for some books better than others, but, and for the same reason that I would think we should have space for somebody like me who draws in a style that isn't typically polished superhero. I also believe that there should be room for people who do exactly that kind of thing, you know. To some extent, I know there's always a bit of, you know, people talk about house styles at Marvel and DC, and you always have like, everybody's trying to draw like Jim Lee, or everybody's trying to draw like Brian Hitch or whatever, you know, that always happens. But when I look at old comics from the 30s, 40s, 50s and 60s, and then I look at what's going on just now, I think there's more variety in the mainstream as well, and there's much more variety like in the indie and self-published and underground stuff, because everybody can do it now. They can do it online, you can get, you know, on-demand digital printing. I mean, it's never been easier for people to produce their own material, but in the mainstream as well, you know, I think we've got more variety than we've had at any point in the past. So,
and look at it this way, like, you know, Frank Miller can do something like Holy Terror originally for DC, and then when he was rejected, he just published it, you know, changed the names and had the book out anyway. You know, he's Frank Miller, and it's very easy for him to do it with a good publisher, but anybody else can do it through a smaller publisher or, you know, online. There's many, many ways to do it. So maybe you can't do everything you want to those characters that are owned by corporations, but you can make sort of, well, sort of like Watchmen was from the cartoon characters, and, you know, it's been done many times. So in a way, it's like, you can actually always do like something that is a stand-in and do whatever you want with it. Any creator can. You don't have to worry about copyright. I want to take something from this side because nobody has asked anything yet. Does anybody want to say anything from that? Yeah?
I was going to ask about it. I mean, your work is obviously very precise and very thorough, and I'm wondering how you juggle that with deadlines and time.
I think you know the answer to that. There's not a lot of juggling now. I'm dropping the ball more than I'm juggling with it. Yeah, I mean, I do try and make deadlines, and I often miss the deadlines. But you know, I always like, with something like a new X-Men, that's a monthly book. They're not going to hold it up because I'm taking too long. So joke aside, I said from the start, like, we'll give you scripts and you draw them and we'll print them when they're, you know, ready. Once you've done that, we'll give you another one from wherever Grant is with his writing. So right from the start, I knew I was just going to be one of a number of different artists that was working on it. With All-Star Superman, I wanted to have 6 issues in the bag before they solicited it, and if I was halfway through the first one, they solicited it. And I think it's just that way. It's like, come on, as long as it takes a draw comic, we'll just put this thing out, you know? And, you know, and you'll speed up with the pressure of deadline and they hate me and all the rest of it, and you know, and it ended up Superman ended up taking like well over 2 years. I think it was near 3 years, you know, 12 issues. So, but and the thing is, the argument always is that if you can keep something coming out monthly, it builds up a momentum and sales are better. But I think if the work's good quality, and in the case of All Star Superman, modesty aside, you know, like a lot of people could have drawn that and it would still have been a classic, you know. And if you've got something like that, I think it's worth taking the time, you know, and doing a good job with it, because even if people get a bit annoyed because they have to wait 2 and 3 months between an issue, you know, you collect it and then you've got, you know, they've got it forever now, you know, and they'll always be able to keep selling that for a long time. Eventually the fashions do change, but you know, if they had pushed, you know, like, and got a couple of different fill-in artists and that, it would still have been a really popular book and it would still have done really well for them, but it wouldn't have been the same, you know. So, and you know, deadlines are important, you know. But
you don't really put yourself in the position to be assigned monthly books.
No.
So that's the thing. You know, it's different to work the way you work, and you really have an understanding with the publisher about, you know, when things are ready. So deadlines are not as important. But if you had signed for one of the new 52s, for example, then you would have had to get filling artists in the middle of story arcs. It's always jarring and so on and so forth. So, you know, I think for the majority of people working in mainstream comics, deadlines are not important. They're everything, because that's how they get work. When you're in the position that you can actually make an arrangement to have the right amount of time to draw something, I think it's an ideal situation that some people can manage.
But you know, I think with the amount of product, as I like to call it, that they put out, you would think that you could build up some kind of reservoir of finished strips.
They never do that.
You know,
that's absolutely right. I mean,
it seems like it wouldn't be that difficult to organise.
Publishers always, like, they could actually have everything drawn before they put it out, and then it could come out in monthly. But the moment that it's drawn, they want it colored by me or somebody else, and they want it out. Like, they cannot wait. It's like, it's done, they want to put it out. And I think that there's exceptions. In mainstream publishing, I think the one exception that I know that you and I have worked for is Vertigo, in which they can actually wait for a long time for things to get done, which is terrific.
And sometimes that really shows.
It really shows. It really shows, and the work normally is not rushed. And then certain special editors like Uptrack, you know, for example, when he was working at DC and year one, you know, Batman Year 100 and things like that, and other projects that you've done with him, All Star Superman. But they're really exceptional situations.
Yeah, but actually Bob Schreck, he edited the All Star Superman, and he's got, for an editor, he's got the healthiest, most logical way of looking at this. He told me the reason that he was never going to chase me up looking for pages was because in all the years he's worked in comics, he's never had the situation where he had an artist who'd done a bunch of pages and was just sitting on them, you know? Or an artist who was like, he had loads of work to do and was just deciding not to do it, you know? Because artists, generally speaking, you know, like, we've always got like rent to pay or food to buy or debts to deal with, you know, and, you know, we're doing the work because we need the money. So if the work's taking a long time to get produced, it's not usually because we're making a stand, you know. It's just because it's not going well, you know. And his take on it was, you know, why phone somebody up and give them a hard time with that, you know. So
he has the right attitude.
The Bob Schreck School of Editing. That's what
So we're going to take a couple more questions. Then we're going to have to.
I was wondering about when you get scripts from the grant, if you've ever been really confused or I'm working my way through the Doom Patrol run right now, and it's impenetrable on some levels. Have you ever been just had your brain just warped by one of his scripts and just said, I can't follow this, I can't understand it?
Yeah, there's been a few things that have been kind of difficult. Yeah, one of his panel descriptions, I've quoted this one before, It was in Flex Mentalo, and he described a background as being, it was when Nanoman and Minimus were shrinking down into the micro-infinite. And, obviously, Grant's description of the micro-infinite, which was really helpful for me to have to draw it this unseen clouds of what was it? Unseen clouds of primordial chaos. Well, that's what it was. It was the primordial chaos was forming around unseen proton cores.
Let me ask you something. Because I know Grant can draw. And does he, when he's drawing, does he draw thumbnails just for his own reference?
Yeah, apparently he does. He does thumbnails for every comic that he writes, but usually the thumbnail is like the size of maybe like a cigarette box. That's the whole page, and he divides it up into the like 5 panels or 7 panels or whatever. And very often they don't have any drawings in them. Occasionally they have like ovals where the heads are going to be, or like a dot where something's going to be, but. He breaks everything down so that he sees the way it's moving about the page.
And then he imagines what's inside of each panel and writes it in his script.
And and sometimes he does very loose drawings. What he does more often, though, he almost never shows the artist these things. But what he does is, if he's designed a new character, or he's changing the design on a costume or something, he'll send that to the artist. You know, like I know a lot of artists, myself included, who have had that.
Like almost like concept art for...
Oh yeah,
yeah. And he designed the logo for this, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, which is a really cool... I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the new X-Men logo is like really forwards and backwards, and it's actually really clever.
Yeah, actually, we were when Grant and I we went over to speak to Joe Quesada and Bill James about just before we started doing New X-Men, and Grant said to Joe, "Listen, I don't want it to be called Uncanny X-Men anymore. I want it to be called New X-Men." And Joe said, "No, as it was, they wanted to keep Uncanny, so we got X-Men, and they changed that to New X-Men." But anyway, Joe said, "No, we can't change the name. Like Bill won't go for it." And this was Bill James, the publisher. So we were out for lunch, and Grant said that he got his sketchbook out and he'd done this wee New X-Men logo. He said, I want to change the name to New X-Men, and Bill James said, "No, it's X-Men, it's the top selling book, you know, we're keeping it as X-Men, it's not becoming New X-Men." And Grant said, look, I've drawn this logo." And Bill said, "Like, just because you've drawn a logo doesn't mean I'm going to change it." And Grant said, "Look, it reads the same upside down." And Bill James went, "That's really good, okay, right, we're calling it." I couldn't believe it. Sometimes it works.
That's such a good story. So, what are you doing after this is over, which we're going to ask us to leave in a couple of minutes? So, are you going to be signing? Are you going to be in the table?
Yeah, and when does this start? 6?
5 o'clock.
Does it?
Yeah, today it's just 5.
All right, well, 4 to 5. That's my last signing, 4 to 5 it'll do.
Very good. But I'm going to ask us to wrap it up then, and thank you everyone for coming. Thank you very much.